When I started exercising at 11, it was inspired by the Christopher Nolan movie Batman Begins. It's watching Batman Begins, and I saw the scene where Christian Bale falls down onto all fours and starts doing push ups immediately. And I'm just like something kind of clicked in my head with like push ups and absorbing force and calisthenics and stuntmanship and like really that absorbing force, like seeing how he could absorb force. And I remember making that a thing where I would like fall down and start doing push-ups, and I did that a lot where I would just be standing, I would just fall straight down and start doing push-ups. And it taught me a lot about absorbing force that I later used in wrestling in high school and jiu-jitsu. And I think it was really useful. And I would even like start jumping down three or four stairs into the push-up position, start doing push-ups. And I got really into this absorbing force as kind of this part of parkour. And earlier in life, I'd, as many children do, experimented with how high I could jump, how tall something could be before I would hurt myself jumping off of it, and like having my knees hit my face and just jumping off and seeing like how to absorb that kinetic energy falling, and experimenting with that. And I've even watched my own kids doing that. And I've thought a lot about this sort of plyometric training that's almost built into human development. But back to doing push ups. I started doing push ups in this context of thinking about fitness and martial arts and purpose orientation, and like what do I do with my hands, because I got like ADHD. And like what do I do, I got like all this energy, what do I do with it? And like how do I train my body in order to train my mind to be fit? How does all this go together? How do I be a well-rounded athlete without making this completely absorb my entire life and I spend 3 hours a day in the gym? How do I not get injured? How do I progress lifelong as an athlete? And I saw push-ups and bodyweight squats and pull-ups and sit-ups, and now I see push-ups and bodyweight squats and pull-ups and leg raises and back bridges and kettlebell swings and walking and skipping even, and these sorts of movements as natural human movements that boost metabolism, that should be done playfully every day to keep metabolism high. And then on top of that, there's other sports specific skills that can be trained, like the ability to walk barefoot, the ability to walk over uneven terrain, like hiking, the ability to jump if you want to train that. And this sort of training really took me until I got very obsessed with powerlifting around the time I was 17, 18. And that dominated the way I trained and like a sort of powerlifting calisthenic hybrid dominated the way I trained for a while. Even when I rediscovered kettlebells, I still had this powerlifting, max strength focused way of training. And it ended up like popping a rib in jiu-jitsu. Like my rib popped out of place and then back into place, and it was sore for, still a little sore sometimes, like 9 months, almost a year. It's like ridiculous amount of time that I've had to take it easy because my rib, I don't want it to like permanently move out of place, whereas none of that used to be an issue. And I wasn't even in a position where someone was putting weight on me in jiu-jitsu. I was simply moving, and just the way I moved, like you can't mount cannons on a canoe, is a video I have where I talk about this. The stabilizing muscles, the soft tissue needs to be properly hydrated. There's all these other physiological support systems that need to be in place and active in order to support athletic activity. So I've come back around to this style of doing push-ups where I'm like an 11-year-old again, doing the push-ups, doing the kettlebell swings, focusing on technique. I have a very long-term, I'm 27 now, I have a very long-term approach in mind. I started this approach really like 4 years ago. I guess I really started this approach again And that was after like 2 years of confusion because of COVID, where like I was training, but like I was kind of confused, and I developed a bunch of health problems that I'm still recovering from. But that's all irrelevant. But the point is, though, I'm 4 years into this cycle of training, so I'm taking a very long term approach to my training. I'm not expecting to even have the skills necessary for a lot of the more advanced training for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because I want to continue training. And what I mean by that is the ability to, like, I can do one arm push ups, but I don't use one arm push ups in my training because I'm not there yet. I could snatch a 106 pound kettlebell, but I don't use that in my training because I'm not there yet. I can go live in jiu-jitsu and do a lot of crazy stuff, and I can go into tournaments, do crazy stuff in tournaments, but I'm not there yet because there's other systems that I'm building up. There's little things with the strength of my feet and how that affects movement that I'm working on. And I'm really working on these things. I'm like, I don't know if there's like a, because sometimes I'll tell people this and they're like, I don't know, I get mixed reactions. It's usually, it tells me more about the person that I'm talking to, but I'm working on these things. And once they're at a certain point that I need them to be at, then I'm going to start doing other parts of my training. Like, here's one thing. So with push-ups, I'm getting my body to the point where I can sustain a really high volume of push-ups every day, really snappy with perfect form and body weight squats before I add back in any sort of volume kettlebell training. Just a little bit of technique kettlebell. A little bit. Mostly walking barefoot and jiu-jitsu technique drills and movement drills. Every day. Why? Because I want to build on the most solid foundation. And this is sort of how I was approaching fitness when I was 11. I started with push-ups, and I wasn't really, I didn't have a history of athletic success at the age of 11. So I didn't feel the need to live up to anything. Whereas when I was 23, 24, coming back from years off from jiu-jitsu, or years off from competing in jiu-jitsu, I think about 3 years off from competing, I felt the need to like prove myself. I was like, oh yeah, I'm back, baby. To show everyone how back I am. And now 3 years later, I might do a tournament next year. But I know the skills. I've done dozens of jiu-jitsu tournaments, like 2 dozen jiu-jitsu tournaments. You can look at my smooth comp. I do pretty well. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to these things. I actually have a good framework in mind, and this is sort of how it manifests. I don't do steroids. I don't do any of this stuff. Any like performance enhancing. I do carnivore, which is very performance enhancing, but this is the way I approach this, and this is really what works for me, and that's really important. And then I think this is like also just kind of human physiology as well, but I've said what I set out to say. Tune in for more. Leave a comment if you have a question, and I'll answer it in a future video, probably. If it's a good comment, it probably will.